Hi, you guys. It's Saturday. Thank you for your patience. Let's go ahead and pick things up where we left off. So, I hope you had a chance to think through what would happen if you asked an individual with a severed corpus callosum to raise their right arm. And hopefully, you came to the conclusion that since the understanding language, Wernicke's area, is localized to the left hemisphere, that there would be communication between Wernicke's and the left motor cortex, which would be required for the command to raise the right arm, right? Because those corticospinal tracts project, of course, contralaterally. So it would be the left motor cortex that would allow the right arm to be raised, or would initiate the command for the right arm to be raised. And so that would be fine. And if you ask them to raise their left arm, however, then that information would need to get from Wernicke's to the right motor cortex, and that would not be able to occur because the corpus callosum is severed. So while the individual would be able to raise their right arm, they would not be able to raise their left arm in response to a verbal command. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, well, let's continue on with some interhemispheric transfer experiments. And just want to stress, we were just talking about asking a question on a human subject. These experiments would have been done in animals. Okay. Mice, rats, or maybe even non-human primates, but in any case, non-human subjects. And so here, what's happening is the animal will be taught, trained to discriminate between two images, here a cross and a knot. And so they wouldn't be shown both of them at the same time. Rather, they would be shown one at a time, and then in a reward-based system, right? So for correct discrimination, they would receive a reward, and they're then able to distinguish or discriminate between the two different symbols. And just a note, this would be shown to the binocular field of view, right? And something that's in the binocular field of view will reach both hemispheres. So both hemispheres are involved in learning. So when the testing is done, and in testing, the trained eye is closed, and the other eye, the left eye in this case, is asked to solve the same problem. And so in this case, because both hemispheres are involved, the information was successfully communicated between both hemispheres, either via crossing at the optic chiasm or via crossing at the corpus callosum, right? One or the other. But in any case, the testing was successful because both hemispheres knew the problem. Okay, it's the key point. Both hemispheres knew the problem, so testing was successful. Now we're going to look at what happens when you sever either the optic chiasm or the corpus callosum. So first, we will sever or split the optic chiasm. So same idea, training in this case on the right eye, discriminating between two different symbols. And if we've severed the optic chiasm, then this information is only going to get to the left hemisphere. The right hemisphere in this case. It will get to the ipsilateral hemisphere, in this case, the right hemisphere. And so testing now done, the trained eye is closed and the left eye is being asked to solve the problem. The information gets, again, only to the ipsilateral cortex, in this case, the left hemisphere. And that's still okay. The left hemisphere knows the problem. And so the conclusion then is that even though the optic chiasm was split, the information was shared via the corpus callosum. So both hemispheres learned the problem via information transfer from the corpus callosum. Okay? So when the corpus callosum is intact, information is shared, both hemispheres know the problem regardless of the eye that learned it. So in this case, it's the optic chiasm that's severed. Let's look at what happens when we sever both the optic chiasm and the corpus callosum. Same idea, discriminatory test with two different symbols. We're training with the right eye. Information in this case will only get, again, to the right cortex, or the right hemisphere, and it can't be shared, and it can't cross at the optic chiasm. So when we test with the left eye, the left hemisphere doesn't know the problem. It didn't receive the information from either the optic chiasm or across the corpus callosum. So that means the intrahemispheric transfer pathways is blocked because we've severed both possible pathways. So when the optic chiasm and the corpus callosum are severed, information can't be shared, and only the ipsilateral or the trained hemisphere will know the problem. The other hemisphere will not. And I'll let you think through on your own, maybe as a study exercise, what would happen, because we talked about nothing severed here on the first slide, then we severed the optic chiasm, then we severed both. I'll let you maybe think about what would be the result if you had an intact optic chiasm but a severed corpus callosum. And I'll let you maybe do that on your own or talk it over with a study partner. All right, I'm not going to go over this slide again because I think I spent ample time on it when we did this lecture. I just want you to recall the monocular field of view, because the next series of experiments we're going to talk about involve images or words that are flashed into the monocular segment, our monocular visual field, and therefore are only going to reach one side of the brain. Okay. And specifically, you will recall that the monocular segment falls on the nasal retina, and information that falls on the nasal retina crosses at the optic chiasm. Okay, key point. Monocular falls on the nasal retina of only one eye and then is projected to the contralateral hemisphere via the optic chiasm. Okay, that's key. If you've got that down, you're good.